go through this. So we're talking the athlete continuum, including injury as part of the athletic experience. So I think the overall feel for this is going to be that we're starting to question a little bit, should we be including injury as a part of that athletic experience? So like, instead of constantly trying to avoid it, should we be putting more effort into like efforts with, this is where it's going to get challenging, efforts with keeping those athletes connected to the team, connected to training while injured, rather than shutting them down?
Yeah. Yeah, it does sound like a really good point.
Yeah.
And it's just, I guess it kind of just goes like, actually, we're just running a demo anyway. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really good question, isn't it? Because it really ties into to manual therapy as well, like that whole, physical dimension versus the modern holistic view of the athlete or the patient.
Yeah,
And do you just treat the athlete like an injury, and then as soon as they've got the injury, that's their diagnosis, that's the label that they've got on their head, compared to looking at the bigger picture and their recovery and how they're dealing with that and how they understand that their injury is healing. Yeah.
I like that. I wrote some of that down.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So yeah, I think I'm just going to call it out from the very beginning that this is something that we're trying to really dive into head first, and we're trying to have a strong clinical commentary and really kind of break the ice on this topic, not necessarily make huge waves in it, but actually just to start to really talk about it. So I think outcome measures and injury prevention, I think that's a huge one. I think everyone across the house is putting a lot of money and research and effort into injury prevention. But the question is, should we be doing more when it comes to the injured athlete, rather than putting all of the funds towards prevention?
Yeah.
Should we be putting more into return to sport protocol as well?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And then
more realistic as well.
Yeah, and can we, I swear I won't have my foot in my mouth this much when we actually go and do it. This is what goes through my head beforehand. Can we somehow have it be okay for an athlete to be injured? Can we somehow communicate better that an injury is not necessarily a failure? It's not necessarily something that should lead to a depression. It's not something that necessarily is the end of the world. That injury is something that we prepare for both mentally, physically, socially, and that just becomes a normal part of the athletic experience.
Sorry, I was muted. Why was I muted? Yeah, one way that I describe the journey of healing to my patients is I might say, actually, and I can't really use this example anymore because of the recent roller coaster accident in the UK. Have you heard about that?
No.
Yeah, there was a roller coaster that crashed, and unfortunately, was
oh my gosh, that's terrible.
But yeah, there's a journey of going up and down of healing, and that it's normal for it to change around. And Adam Meakin's had his article in the BJSM as well about how there's it's not healing isn't linear. You don't just go from where you are to where you want to be in a straight line. It's constantly about changing. And if you brace people for that psychologically, then they've got a better idea. Then they're more likely to deal with it a lot better. Whereas if they think, oh, I'm always supposed to be at 110%, and then when they're 90%, then that's catastrophic. Then that's it's unrealistic. It sets them up for failure.
I like that. All right, let's touch on that too. So healing and success are both not linear. They should be full of ups and downs and twists and turns.
Yeah, and I think it's important to establish that from the start. About if you want to go from here to here, it's not linear.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really going to hit home here specifically, because everyone is expected to be at 110% from the age of like 5 on. And it's really because colleges have become so expensive. So anything that you can even bring in from a cultural standpoint, like you and I are the first ones that are doing the cross-Atlantic podcast. So at least for us. So anything that you can bring in culturally, I'm all about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite cool as well because like I've kind of gone across the Pacific as well, like over to the UK from Australia. So I've seen, the different cultures, the differences there as well.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Using social media and other technology to include injury as part of the athletic experience. Do you want to say anything on that?
What do you mean by that exactly, actually?
So how can we, I guess, like, remember how you said that you would rather have, it's the clinician's responsibility to find the research and then interpret it through their blogs or their, email newsletter blasts or.
Sure.
So I think how can we use social media to include injury as part of the athletic experience? So how do we not lose these athletes yet meet them on their level by using social media?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I guess I'm just thinking it's important with the media that you're distributing that it's not all about, here's how to shave 10 seconds off and here's how to optimize this technique. But there's also ones about how to deal post race and nutrition and like just being really holistic with the education that you deliver.
Yeah.
So like if your social media is all about just like optimizing and fine-tuning and like the less kind of bare bones, less kind of sexy aspect of it, then you're really doing them a disservice.
Right.
I guess you're doing good things for your social media and keeping it interesting, but I think it's really, really important to, I think you've got a responsibility if you're on social media and you've got you're in a valued position with a sports team or with athletes that you use it responsibly and not just kind of about hype. So
I think one of the things that we struggle with in America is the fact that PTs do the PTs do a lot of stuff on social media in America, but one of the downfalls is that they're marketing to other PTs. They're using it as a tool for other PTs. So while they're sharing the research and things like that, they're not necessarily making it applicable to the patient. They're not relating it to them at their level. So patients necessarily aren't seeking social media in order to become better educated.
Yeah,
it's absolutely. The PT that's trying to follow, the industry-leading PT.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Like, I'm just thinking about this now, just as we're talking, but I think there must be like a real middle ground to find. Like, if you're an athlete or if you're a patient and you're seeking out health information, because you've got so many healthcare providers that are on Twitter right now.
Yeah.
And they're all talking about like optimizes care, do this, don't do that. But they're always talking at like, at the high level, talking, the medical jargon and, no one can really understand what's going on. And, unless you've got like a social media account that's dedicated to your patients and speaks on their level, then, they're going to feel left out.
Yeah.
So I guess like one thing that I think is important to have is like, say the website that I've made, which I made for my patients. And, and then in turn, I've met some, people like yourself and people who can share information. You put that together and then you've got like a package that instead of your patients going out onto the internet and just reading rubbish, they've got something quality they can look at. So I think there is like, I think there is a real gap on social media between, the higher tiers of, discussing kind of like academically and, just the nitty gritty and talking about how to deal with an injury, which isn't as exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's where I was hoping that question was going to go. So
yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, okay, and then the pushing the boundaries for return to sport protocols. I think this is where we can really just talk some ideas and see where exactly should we be if we are having injured athletes. Should we be putting as much resources into return to sport that we are injury prevention?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I didn't see the question like that, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And then for the fast 5 questions, that's pretty much where I blatantly say, okay, this is the only scripted part. And then feel free to answer those in 1 word or 1 sentence or a paragraph, you know, however, whatever you think.
Yeah, I'd say that's all yours.
What's that?
You can have that one. You can have
What's
those 5. Yeah, I'd say, okay, here's Jenny's top 5 statements.
Now we have 2 PTs. We got to get a Cairo. It was so funny. The first PT, Shane, that I interviewed, he's got a great background with swimming. So he was like, you know, the aquatic athlete is misunderstood. And then when I asked Jay was like, the aquatic athlete is someone in a pool.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So, you know, answer those however you see fit.
He's an athlete too.
Yeah.
He's a real boy.
Yeah. All right. So
Okay.